Firefighters battle a massive fire on the doorstep of one of America's most notorious prisons. The Republican race for governor is still close, but the numbers aren't moving. That's great news for one candidate and probably curtains for another. Young Coloradans are out doing fire mitigation for their neighbors.
It really feels like I'm helping out, even in a really small way.
And you raised almost $90,000 for the families of fallen and injured wildland firefighters. Because when folks are in trouble, you don't just watch. Because this is next. The Aspen Acres Fire is a monster, now the 7th largest in state history. It's grown to about 143 square miles and is 12% contained. Some people there along the Pueblo County-Custer County line got to go back home today, as thousands of others are still under evacuation orders. The fire pushed into the small town of Wetmore last night, where a small group of volunteer firefighters worked through the night to protect homes before federal resources could arrive. And we're told that only one home in Wetmore caught fire and was quickly handled.
I cannot understate the heroism of their small fire department in fighting this monster fire. And so the fire came very close to their town. They had, several days of warning. They set up a massive fire break with bulldozers. In fact, local contractors actually brought their bulldozers out just to help us get this in place. And then right at the end, one of the people called me and said they saw 7 air tankers in a row just swooping in, dropping retardant on there.
Save in Wetmore. Firefighters also working the Aspen Acres Fire have to protect the prison complex that includes Supermax, where America's most notorious criminals are held. Inmates including El Chapo and the Boston bomber are not being evacuated ahead of the fire. Our Mark Salinger joins us now from Pueblo, where the fire managers, Mark, say they're not particularly concerned about Supermax at the moment.
Yeah, not right now, but the fire continues to grow, most in the northwest part of that burn area. That's Custer County and pushing potentially into Fremont County. We've seen the evacuation zones go right up to one of the most secure places on the entire planet, if not just this country. I want to show you what the evacuation zones look like right now. Take a look at this map. This is the mandatory evacuation zone around Florence right now, and you can see it extends right up to the edge of the federal correctional complex there, and then goes right around it. The prison itself is not included in that mandatory evacuation order at this time. That complex includes ADX Florence, the Supermax facility that houses some of those most notorious inmates in the country. I asked the Bureau of Prisons directly today about the situation there, and a spokesperson told me that they're actively monitoring and responding to the fire, but it remains safe from any threats of wildfire activity. The Bureau of Prisons says the facility will continue to shelter in place as a precaution. Today, we put that question directly to the man leading this firefight, Incident Commander Jake Livingston, who says they're not concerned as of yet, but have been in touch with the feds.
We are not concerned right now for the fire reaching that area. We know where it is. We've looked at mapping and imagery for that area, and right now we have no concerns.
But again, those newest evacuations are in Fremont and Custer counties, pushing in that area. One of the reasons that they might not be as worried about the fire getting there is what the prison complex is made of. A lot of concrete and a lot of steel. But earlier today we were there and there were some bulldozers that were creating large fire lines around the outer complex of that prison. Kyle, they are taking this seriously, even though the fire might not be there just yet.
Mark, a question for you. Air quality in Denver is not great today, I think thanks in part to some fires out of state. Curious what the air quality has been like down around southern Colorado.
It's certainly not good. I mean, you can't even see that far, over the horizon with the smoke that's coming in. We were in Canyon City today, and the smoke was all pushing that direction from the fire. And you could see the planes making the drops of retardant and slurry over the fire line, but you could hardly even make it out as they moved over the horizon past the smoke. There was that much smoke billowing up and pushing that direction. You start getting a headache, and your voice gets a little bit raspy. I'm sure that's everyone feeling that across the Front Range today.
All right, Mark Salinger, appreciate you and appreciate the work from photojournalist Foster Gaines down there today as well. Thank you guys. We're tracking a few other fires burning around our state, including the Willow Fire west of Leadville. It's burned about 6 square miles, just 1% containment on that fire. Firefighters nearly do have their arms around the Snyder Fire, burning on the Colorado-Utah state line. It covered 47 square miles before they got containment. That fire took the lives of 3 firefighters and injured 2 others. Your latest weekly micro-giving campaign is raising funds to support those injured firefighters and the families of the fallen, and your generosity has been astonishing. Between one-time donations and the monthly donors to the Word of Thanks Fund, you've raised almost $90,000 for the Wildland Firefighters Foundation. There's still time to donate. You're welcome to scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491. Wildland Firefighters Foundation is the go-to nonprofit in the American West, very connected with the firefighting community. They take care of these families. You can also donate by going to wordofthanks.org, wordofthanks.org, where you can see all the weekly campaigns, where you can nominate a nonprofit. I want to bring in 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi now to talk about the weather's impact on the fire situation. And I mean, that fire in southern Colorado now ranks up among some of the nastiest we've ever seen.
Exactly right, Kyle. 7th biggest fire on record. And you might remember that a week ago that the Aspen Acres Fire, which is again now the 7th biggest wildfire on record, more than 91,000 acres burnt by that one. A week ago, that fire was at about 20,000 acres. It really exploded last Wednesday and Thursday because of really strong winds. Now, here's the good news to pass along. We look at the wind over the next 24 hours, and the wind this week just not nearly as bad as it was last week. That was really the thing that kind of set things apart last week and allowed all those fires to really explode. Unfortunately, one thing to watch for, though, is around the Willow fire near Leadville. That's the one where we've seen the most growth in the last couple of days, at least compared to where it was before. The Willow fire, unfortunately, the winds there will be about 20, 25 miles an hour. Stronger than where it's been over the weekend, but the overall takeaway here, Kyle, would be generally good news in terms of those wind speeds, and we will see relative humidity come up this week as well, so hopefully some good news for firefighters out there in western Colorado.
Chris, thank you. Victor Marks is poised to be the Republican nominee for Colorado governor, but it is not yet official for the so-called high-risk missionary whose claims about dangerous rescues and killings abroad have led fellow Republicans to label him a con man. Marks leads State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer by almost 2,000 votes, and that total has not shifted over days of counting. It's outside the margin that would prompt an automatic recall, which is not likely to change many votes anyway. Right now, both campaigns are working to cure ballots turned in by their supporters, ballots that might need something fixed, like a signature issue. The Republican nominee, of course, is going to be an enormous underdog to the Democrats' candidate, Attorney General Phil Weiser. Coloradans have elected just one Republican governor in the last 55 years. Republican State Rep Scott Bottoms is out of the hospital. The third-place finisher in the Republican race for governor was hospitalized Saturday with what his team said was dangerously high diabetic blood sugar levels. Bottoms' staff said today he is now home from the hospital and resting comfortably. Bottoms' family and campaign staff thanked the public for their support, prayers, and encouragement. If something can be entirely predictable and still news, this qualifies. Colorado and 48 other states saw a drop in Affordable Care Act enrollments for health insurance after federal subsidies expired. In Colorado, about 18,000 fewer people enrolled this year, 7% decrease from last year. Ohio and Oklahoma saw the biggest declines, losing nearly 1/3 of enrollees. Last week, the Trump administration attributed the drop in enrollment to a federal crackdown on fraud. Analysts say it is much more likely related to the expiration of federal tax credits. Only one state saw an increase. New Mexico gained 14% more enrollees. If you're curious why, New Mexico was the only state in America that fully replaced the lost federal subsidies using its own funding. Colorado is partially subsidizing a program to lower premiums for another year. Medicaid patients, of course, need help getting to and from non-emergency medical appointments. There are essentially these rideshare companies in Colorado providing that service. They rely on Medicaid reimbursement to get repaid. It's a difficult math problem when the state has a budget crisis and recently discovered it was overpaying for that service compared to other states. Our Marshall Zellinger has an update.
Getting a ride to a medical appointment should not take so much math.
I'm not asking for more.
Republican State Representative Rick Taggart may want more, particularly for his area of the Western Slope.
Research carefully the cost structure of rural versus urban.
The state recently cut the reimbursement rates for companies that provide non-emergency rides for Medicaid patients. Colorado had been paying 3 times higher than comparable states. The reimbursement is now $12 a ride, down from $36. Providers also get reimbursed for mileage, nearly $3 a mile, just not the miles to go pick up the patient.
A deadhead mile in rural could be going 50 miles. I gave an example of today of 150 miles.
We were not paid 1,038,000 miles driving to pick people up and get them where they needed to go.
Kelly Milan owns Sunshine Rides, one of the companies that provides rides to patients in rural Colorado.
That's over 1 million miles of unpaid costs. So we're not asking for a handout. We just need to cover our costs.
To determine if the rates the state just lowered were lowered too much, the lawmakers in control of the state budget asked for an analysis.
They said, actually, we are really in line with what other states are paying and maybe even a little higher.
The review determined that reducing the overall pickup rate actually harmed metro area providers more than rural providers, but that the new rates were still in line with what other states pay for the service. The state's healthcare policy and financing department suggested the state could increase the pickup fee, but told lawmakers it was not necessary.
They did what we asked, which was to examine the rate and say, if you want to do something, here's what you could do, but we wouldn't recommend it.
There's a wild card in determining if these companies should get more money again. Earlier this year, the state discovered it was overpaying for a portion of this service, paying $668 in reimbursement per ride instead of $65. That's 10 times as much. And the state also discovered it was paying companies for phantom rides that never really existed except on paper. So Kyle, any conversation about the legitimate rides will definitely be scrutinized now.
Yeah, I mean, right? State legislators have to make difficult cuts, and I'm sure people are going to say, why pour money in a leaky bucket?
And to find out that other states were never as high as you were and they're getting by just fine, everything seems to be stacked up against these non-emergency medical transport companies.
All right, Marshall Zellinger, thank you. In a moment here, the plans to keep the screwworm from decimating livestock in Colorado. A crew of teenagers is helping to prevent the spread of wildfires in our state, doing some fire mitigation work for neighbors who can't do it themselves. That's next. As screwworm cases continue to spread through Texas and New Mexico, Democrats in Colorado's congressional delegation are pushing the Agriculture Department to do more to protect this state from the outbreak. The New World screwworm was detected in the U.S. last month for the first time in 60 years. It's a parasitic fly that infests livestock and can injure or kill cattle. So far, it's only been detected in Texas and New Mexico. In a letter to the USDA, Senators Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper and Congressman Joe Neguse asked the feds to increase surveillance and inspections across Colorado, said an infestation would be catastrophic for rural and ranching communities. Colorado's ag leaders are already working to prevent and control a potential outbreak. All animals coming into the state are supposed to be inspected by a vet. Denver had the worst air quality in America today as wildfire smoke lingered around the city. Colorado's health department says the hot and sunny weather is making it worse. The smoke particles can irritate your lungs. It can be bad on people's hearts, especially folks who have sensitive health. As more smoke comes into the Front Range, folks with heart disease, respiratory illness, the very young and the elderly are supposed to limit their time outdoors. Chris Bianchi, it's day after day after day. That's what you said, 9 days in a row with an air quality alert in Denver.
And our 20th so far this season. That's the most since records began back in 2011. So it's not just you. We've had these air quality alerts day after day, and that is unfortunately going to continue probably into tomorrow with a smoke forecast. They'll bring a bit more smoke tomorrow morning, but we should see things improve a little bit tomorrow afternoon and into Wednesday as we get some low-level moisture back in the picture. Here's the other problem. It's really hot, and that heat helps bake in the ground ozone. So it's not just wildfire smoke. You couple that with high heat, like today, our hottest temperatures so far in 2026 are at least tied with it in Denver. You get that combination of heat and that wildfire smoke, and that's why today so uniquely bad in terms of that air quality in Denver. We are also seeing a few gusty showers and rumbles of thunder up by Fort Collins and northern Weld County, a little bit of that as well, but these are not good news storms. Very little rain coming from this, more wind and lightning than anything else. We'll have the chance for one or two or more of these over the next hour or so. We'll clear things up tonight, and a few more showers and storms in the picture for tomorrow. 7-day forecast. We've got temperatures that'll be in the 90s for tomorrow and also for Wednesday. And then by Thursday, we kind of cool down a little bit with some showers and storms that'll be fairly widespread. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we heat back up. We'll be up near 100 degrees at the end of this weekend. And then next week, middle to end of next week, some promising signs, the monsoon just around the corner.
For a crew of 15 young people to show up and just get it done is such a help to the community.
Teenagers spending part of their summer helping Coloradans protect their homes and communities from the next wildfire. We'll visit with them next. be hard-pressed to find a Coloradan who doesn't know why fire mitigation is important, but it can be physically hard work or expensive. Enter Boulder's Wildfire Partners, which teamed up with Teens Inc. for some hands-on work in Lafayette. Our Tom Cole tagged along.
They're all very quiet introverts.
With all the wildfires in Colorado, volunteers with firefighting tools walking into your neighborhood might be concerning.
Today we're making a gravel barrier so that if there was a fire, it wouldn't spread to the home. Yeah, awesome.
This group of kids is with Teens Inc., a nonprofit. They're spending part of their summer days helping with fire mitigation in Boulder County communities.
We're all kids and there's a lot we have in common. We have a really good community that we build up together.
Today, they are helping the community of Lafayette Gardens Mobile Park. All this help and material is funded through Boulder County's wildfire mitigation tax.
We have a pretty hard-working crew.
It's all for free for those who need just a little extra help making sure their home is safer from fires.
I like to, as much as possible, bring in some other folks from the Wildfire Partners team to talk to the crews about the importance of the work that they're doing and how that really ties into the bigger picture of wildfire mitigation.
I really like doing fire mitigation because I do hear about fires in the news and things, and it really feels like I'm helping out even in a really small way, especially in an area like this where a lot of residents don't have a lot of other options.
Homes around the corner have already been cleaned up and gravel put down.
There's so much gratitude here.
I want water now.
For a crew of 15 young people to show up and just get it done is such a help to the community.
That's pretty intensive work too. Each property takes about 3 days to finish. We are back with your feedback next. Thank you. The most Colorado thing we saw today was a bunch of bears doing their best Abbey Road impression. Our friend Shannon Lukens with Steamboat Radio sent in this photo. Mama bear and two cubs crossing Steamboat Boulevard. Looks straight out of an album cover, right? Shannon says all the cars there stopped. The bears got across safely. If you see something that just says Colorado to you, send it to us. We'll share it with the state. You can hit us at next@9news.com on the email or text us 303-871-1491. Thank you to all of you who gave so generously to our latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign to support the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. Within an hour of those firefighters' deaths on the Western Slope, they were already in contact with the crews and the families, working to try and get those families help, and they'll be with those families for as long as is needed. And Shirley said, thanks for providing us a way to help the families of those wildland firefighters. We'll look for additional ways in the coming weeks and months to help out other Coloradans also impacted by those terrible fires. Got a couple of notes from people who are under the mistaken impression that there is a new addition in my family. One of these would just be like, well, we got wires crossed, but somebody writes, you're now a girl dad ×3, Mazel tov. Nope, still just the two daughters. Somebody else says, congrats on your good news. She's amazing. Folks, write in and tell me where you're hearing this. This birth is news to me. It's good news, but news to me. We'll see you next time.